Welcome back to the Act 2 podcast, a podcast for the real-life working screenwriter. I'm Tasha Hugh.
And I am Josh Hallman.
And we're Act 2, a network and support group for the everyday working screenwriter. This podcast is just one of the things we do. We also have a Patreon. And in fact, we did a Patreon event last night, and it was a Zoom Q&A, which we do every month. We either read a script or we watch a movie, and we sit down and we discuss it together over Zoom with our Patreon co-EP subscribers. And it was a big day for Josh Hallman yesterday.
Yeah, I have thoughts.
I feel as it was anticlimactic, though, for you.
It was. I feel like I forced you into watching something. It was a transactional viewing. We watched Attack the Block, and you could not have cared any less.
It's just, listen, it's a real tough time right now. And it was just like an energy. I had no energy because we did it at night. Well, 5:30. And okay, listen.
It's fine. It already happened. There were witnesses.
We watched Attack the Block, which, you know, and I watched it from the link that Josh sent me from 2015. And apparently I'd moved into a new place at that time because you said, this is a move-in gift. And it was an iTunes link. And I had some struggles with iTunes. I didn't know if it was going to accept a link from 2015, but it did. I've never even watched a movie on iTunes like that before. But I made it, and I watched it at the end of a very long day. And there were a lot of hurdles. It was actually kind of interesting how many hurdles there were, Josh Hallman. It was like the universe was trying to help me not watch this movie.
Mm-hmm.
We had to cancel last month's because of my father passing away last month. And so I texted Josh. I was like, go ahead without me. And Josh was like, absolutely fucking not. We're not doing that. I would rather cancel than have to do that. So we canceled for the first time ever. And we redid our Q&A last night. And we talked about Attack the Block finally. But this is kind of why I was so low energy, is because my days are like every hour is kind of accounted for at this moment, just because June has been very crazy. I've been in a writer's room down in El Segundo, and I'm in a hotel room. And so, like, again, every moment before the writer's room is accounted for, every moment afterwards. So I had a slot for when Attack the Block could fit in. And that also happened to be the only slot that my manager, who lives in London, because of the time difference, could call me about a pitch that I have today. So in the middle of the movie, she calls me, and I just had it on. I was reading subtitles through that section. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't care about anything you just said. I just
But I told Paul that, he was so upset for you.
Paul understands.
Paul understands.
When I knew you didn't watch it, when there's specific things in it that are so like fine-tuned to Tasha, that I was like, oh, okay. I'm not even going to talk about it. I knew within 3 seconds of your reaction to Attack the Block.
No.
Yeah.
I watched it. I know what you're talking about, like what? Like the gearing up scenes and the
This is actually an interesting thing. This is one of those things where someone's like, no, I watched it, but they passively watched it while they're putzing on their phone, making dinner, having side conversations. And then you're like, yeah, oh yeah, I've seen The Godfather. And you're trying to like, yeah, that's the Pacino one, right?
It's just like that. And I'm so sorry, because I know how that feels.
I don't think you knew how this felt. It's like
I'll rewatch it.
No, it's okay. I don't even want you to anymore. That you've broken me. You did it. Congratulations. I'm done. You broke my soul.
Well, it's a really good discussion. I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
People had a lot of interesting insights, and the pertinent part is we talked about structure at the end. You asked a really great question of what you think the structure of the movie is. And that led to our topic for next month is going to be reading a script and then just focusing on structure. Usually these Q&As are like, what did you like? What did you dislike about it? If you were hired to rewrite this script, what would you do specifically? Getting into, the writer questions of the art, the craft of screenwriting. And in this one in particular, we're going to ignore all of those questions and only focus on structure. Because of that question, and I thought it was great. So if you're interested in structure, if you're unsure about structure, if you'd like to learn more about structure, sign up for this month's Patreon, because in July, towards the end of July, we'll do a Zoom Q&A where we will break down the structure of a really great script.
Yeah, and Attack the Block is interesting for anyone who hasn't seen it because it starts in action, basically, within minutes of the movie. And I feel like the structure of it isn't the traditional, how people, it's like, oh, the inciting incident happens on page 12 or whatever. And this is kind of like it hits the ground running. There's character development, there's plot, there's everything. The groundwork is laid very quickly in Attack the Block, which is something I didn't appreciate as much when I first watched it, but now years later, and when I watch it, I'm like, oh, this is even better than I thought.
So I'll just rewatch it.
No, just Paul, delete the movie from the hard drive or wherever movies live now.
If you don't want to sign up for Patreon and you don't want to talk about structure with us, that's fine. You can DM us with your topics and your questions. And you can do that at ActTwoWriters@gmail.com, all spelled out, or on our Instagram at ActTwoWriters. I'm Story Thursday on Instagram.
And I am Josh Hallman on Instagram.
In fact, because you guys are DMing us your questions and topic suggestions, that has become our topic for today.
What a segue.
Which we can get into, unless, Josh, you have any this week's in writings that you'd like to talk about.
No, I just want to get into things. I think I'm going to hold off. We're in the summertime. It's a weird, it's a strange time right now. I can't explain it. There's I don't have any substantial this week's in writings.
Because your child is out of school and it's just managing summer.
Yeah, there's some things I could talk about, but we're not getting into it right now.
Well, until you see Disclosure Day, I think there's nothing to talk about. So we will wait until that moment.
Don't try to turn this around. What did you just do? What? What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's right. It goes both ways.
That was some Jedi shit.
So as I said, our topic today comes from listeners just like you. We got some emails we thought we would better off answering on the episode just because it feels like questions that other people might have as well. So we're going to start with Chase, who has been listening for about a year now, and he had a question that came up for him because of a friend of his who is moving out of the country and still wants to pursue a writing career, a screenwriting career specifically. And he was kind of asking, like, is that possible? We talk a lot about there being an LA bubble here and how exclusive Hollywood can be and feel. But do we think it's possible to go overseas, to work in a different country and still break into Hollywood? Or does it just make it infinitely harder or even impossible?
It's interesting. My answer to this has evolved over time. Yeah, of course you can break in from anywhere. Now it's easier than ever. The Monitor guys that we had on a few weeks ago are a perfect example of that. When I say my answer has evolved, what I mean by that is I'm just the type of person who kind of has to be around like-minded individuals and people who you can talk about screenwriting with. Otherwise, I might get distracted and I might go do something else. So that's just my personal thing. But if you are able to sit down, lock in, get your scripts written, and send them out and get them read, then yeah, absolutely. You can do your things from Zoom. You can do everything from Zoom now. I feel like it's easier than ever to have a career outside of Los Angeles.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. When I was coming up, I did internships and I worked as an assistant on a TV show, and there was a point where I was like, I'm leaving Los Angeles and I'm moving back to Boston where my boyfriend was at the time, and I was like, I'm gonna just do that so that I can write and actually produced good samples that I could then get a rep. Like I had nothing at that time. And it was a huge stressful I don't know, time in my life because I didn't know if I had to stay in LA in order to make my career work. And even at the time, the advice was split directly in half, and I asked absolutely everyone I could possibly ask. And half of them were like, "No, you have to stay in LA because this is where the industry is. You're gonna lose all of your contacts." And then half the people were like, writers can work from anywhere. And to Josh's point, I think now more than ever, that last part is true. It took me a long time to get back into the industry when I got back, just because all the people that I did know had left, and I was gone only, I think it's like 1 to 2 years I was gone, and just in Boston, and I was still writing and all of that, but everyone I knew who had been assistants or had been executives, they just were all gone. He's left the business. So like that can happen to you if you already have contacts. But if you don't have contacts already, then I mean, it's the same as being anywhere. It's all just digital now. Submit as much as you possibly can. And I do think I agree with Josh that being around people who do the same thing can just give you that extra oomph to keep going. It can be harder to motivate yourself if you're in a place where nobody screenwrites and nobody cares about movies. So you can't talk about this thing that you love. But we've certainly seen plenty of people manage that. So I think it's absolutely possible. And also you can start to get into the market in whatever country that you're in. And that can give you some of the real world experience that you can then leverage once you get here. The experience will be different, but it will still be giving you like no experience is bad experience. So I think it's possible.
Let me ask you, in your current room that you're in, or any previous rooms, have you had any remote writers that were new writers that were working remote in your writer's room?
Well, it's interesting. In the current writer's room I have, they're not screenwriters just because of the needs of what this particular room is. The writers that I have are authors and comic book writers, and they are all not from Los Angeles. However, one of them in particular, actually both of them, have still gotten some film experience because people have optioned their books, or they've been asked to come on to TV shows as consultants, and they're certainly interested in it. That's just like not what their first writerly instinct is to write for film and TV. So they live abroad and they're totally fine with that.
Oh, okay. But so they're not physically there.
Currently they're physically here, but we're going to do a Zoom room next week. And for TV, it's harder. I'm starting a room soon, and one of the writers will be out of the country. And because they're out of the country and they're not coming to the US for this, they're just going to be on Zoom. And that's going to be tough because we're all going to be in the room and this one person is going to be on Zoom. And just having been in that situation before, it's harder to like get the flow of the room. It's harder to interrupt people with your ideas, the same way it would be in a room when you're conversing just naturally. And it's harder sometimes for them to hear things. And so the tendency for showrunners is to not hire someone if they're like the one person, or even like one or two people are going to be on Zoom. It's just tougher.
Mm-hmm.
This is a special case, and that's why we're doing this. But for TV, it's really hard. For movies, it's not hard. You can just fly out here when things start to pick up, and that's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Plus, this person in particular is moving to Japan, which is just a better country all in all. So I think
Japan.
they're going to be okay.
I don't know, man. All the power to you if you can do it. I cannot. I mean, yes, maybe find the scene there, but I personally would just be immersed in whatever is going on in wherever I am.
Yeah. The one hurdle in other countries is that they tend to prefer local writers in their industry, writers who know the culture, who know the audience just better, and also they want to hire locally more than we do in the US. So that can be tough, and I think Japan is definitely one of those places. But if you're Japanese, then it's no different. Okay, next question is from Mason, who asks, how important is it to copyright your material so that it's not stolen? They elaborate and say, the fee that it costs to copyright material is like between $20 to $50 per script, or per script idea. And that's just like, that's not a small fee. So how do you differentiate? A, do you copyright your stuff, Josh Hallman? And then B, how do you differentiate between what you should copyright? Like a script, a YouTube skit that you might put online, a TV pilot, a feature film, etc.
I do not copyright. Technically, you have copyright the second you write something. I don't know the legal world around copyright, but I do know that once you have created something, that creation is yours and you can show it. However, you know, I guess it's worth registering if it's important material, but I think like the fear of theft is often overblown. I remember early on, like I was worried I would register things because like right after I'd write it and be like, oh my God, no one can steal this idea. And then it just, that never materialized at all. And I know that's my personal take on it. What about what about you?
I'm the exact same. When I first started, I was constantly registering my stuff with the WGA, and that's something that you can do pretty easily online. And I remember it feeling very official and very cool to just like see the WGA registration on my title page. But I definitely stopped doing it, and I have not done it years, decades.
I do remember like you would write something that might have been the worst script in the entire world and you just register it with the WGA, and it did feel amazing. I actually think I still have one of my first like certificates of registration that I've just held on to just
Mm-hmm.
because it's like I'm like, oh my God, I remember like being so nervous and putting, going through that whole process, but I don't think you need to copyright.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. I mean, as we saw with the monitor guys, it can certainly happen to you. There are definitely cases that pop up on Deadline and Variety that like literal cases in court where people are claiming that someone has stolen their idea. So it happens, but it will happen regardless. I think the way that you would win in a situation like that is a paper trail more than it is having copyrighted or registered something. If it makes you feel safer to do it, by all means, do it. But if it's this kind of money suck, as this person is saying, then professionally you don't need to be doing those things. You just need kind of a paper trail and anything on your own computer that can be dated so that that can be considered evidence if it ever does happen to go to court. But that is like 0.5% of scripts have this happen to it, I would say.
I'm currently watching the movie Power Ballad, which I had to stop halfway through. It's with Nick Jonas and Paul Rudd,
Oh, that's right. Uh-huh.
and it is so good. And it is basically about a rock star who takes a wedding singer's song. It just like pushes them into another stratosphere, and so it's very appropriate. It's a great movie if anyone wants to watch it.
That's funny. Yeah, I want to watch it. Thank you for reminding me.
You'll watch that in like 2088.
Oh no, Josh hates me.
All right.
All right, next question is basically about like the writing lifestyle. And this person asks, "Can you please elaborate on what it's like balancing a job to pay rent while also actively writing? Additionally, how were you able to position yourself to eventually secure back-to-back writing jobs?" This person I specifically listened to one of our episodes about the screenwriting life, where he talked about basically the reality of how difficult it is to get a job in this industry and what it's like to realistically be a working screenwriter. And it's tough, and you often have a day job while doing this. So I guess what it's like to balance a job to pay rent while also actively writing is certainly something we both can speak from experience with, and it's very hard. My job just before I started working professionally was an assistant at Universal Studios in their feature department. So my hours, I worked 12 hours a day, and it was exhausting. And on top of that, being in LA, you have an hour plus traffic either way. So what I would typically do after work is I would go straight to IHOP, our favorite place. When Josh and I were coming up, that was like the spot. So we'd go to IHOP because it was 24 hours and I could have infinite Diet Cokes and pancakes to last me through the night. And I would just go and write until I got exhausted. and then start again the next day. And usually on the weekends, almost always on the weekends, I was taking a huge chunk of my weekends to write. Like that was like, oh, thank God, I finally have time to write. And so, I'd come back on Monday morning and we'd all be all the assistants would be getting coffee, and you'd be like, oh, what'd you do over the weekend? And everyone had these great things that they
Hmm.
did, and they went to parties and all this stuff. And I was like, I stayed home and wrote. I went to the gym and I went and I wrote. Like that was my weekend. And
Oh.
that unfortunately is what it took, given I had a job that took up so much time. If I had a job that was more 9 to 5, I would just have more hours. So maybe I could be a little looser on the weekends, but that was what I was able to do. So it's hard. The answer is it's hard to balance both of them. But if you really love it, and you're really dedicated to it, you'll find that time. Because even when you start working professionally, like right now, it's very hard for me to find time to actually do my own writing. So it's a skill that you should definitely start to practice, that kind of dedication to the craft. And I'm going to let Josh talk. Did you handle this struggle?
It's interesting because I think sometimes when, you have, in your case, an assistant job and you're working at Universal, and in my case, I was I was like writing shorts and filming things and working for like digital production companies. And so it's kind of as though you're like operating in the world of entertainment and you're still writing and you're still creating, but you're adjacent to what you want to do because it's like, I just want to write features. And then I'm over here writing shorts for whatever. And, like YouTube Rewind or whatever it is. And so it's a weird thing because you're kind of in it, but you're also like a million miles away. It feels like it because you're just like, I just want to write. I don't know there's no answer to this besides just like powering through and writing. I mean, I would, me, I was waking up around 5 and then I would write in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and then we would obviously have our group. I can't even remember. I didn't have like set I'm going to do this. I would just be like, I need to wake up now. And some days I'd just be burnt out. Like I was just like, I can't do it. And it's like, what we were talking about. By the end of the day, your brain is just completely fried. Like
Mm-hmm.
and so it's hard to do, but you just have to. This is why like outlining is so important. And if you're yeah, obviously if you're writing for yourself and just writing and just knowing exactly what you need to get done and just be like, I just need to write a few pages. I just need to write a few more. And then before you know it, you get into that rhythm and you finish things. So the balance is, it's just hard. There
There's
is
no
no balance.
balance. Yeah, I think it's important to let go of this sort of fantasy idea of what writing is, and part of that fantasy, I think, for me at least, was always like, just like, sitting on a porch or at a cafe, you just have all the time in the world to write your brilliant thing. And I think oftentimes it's not that at all. Sometimes it is and it's
Yeah.
amazing. But oftentimes it's like exactly as you described, you're almost kind of writing for your life. You're just trying to get things done because you don't have the time in the day that you want. And having talked to a lot of writers who do have kids, especially when they just have kids, there's this fear that I'm never going to be able to write again. But instead, what they've found is that they really narrow in and really focus, and they end up a lot of parents I've talked to have said that they write more than they did before because now they know I only have that 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. window, or I only have 12 to 3 when I have to pick up my kid, whatever that is. So like they write very intensely in a very specific time. And that can be a way to balance your time if you have another job. But it's kind of what we all have to do.
Let me tell you, the kid factor, shit is real. You don't know it until you know it. And I'm telling this is someone who has a kid. I remember thinking, like there's just this, it's not until a little human being is screaming in your freaking face, I do realize, oh, I really do only have like 1 hour throughout the day. Like I can't push this a little later. There's just no excuses. At that point, you're delirious.
The second part of their question is like, how did you get back to back jobs? And the answer is kind of, it's a combination of luck and exactly what we're talking about, this like hard work dedication aspect, because there's not my agents when I first started very clearly and very often told me you will probably not be working every year. Like, count yourself lucky. Like, usually there's 5 years. Like, that's a common number between when people get jobs. And for me, so far, it's only been like 1 year, which, knock on wood, because anything is possible. And the way I was able to secure quote unquote back to back jobs is I was just while I was writing something, I was constantly pitching for something else. Like I said earlier in the podcast, I am currently in a writer's room, but I have been pitching on several things so that I could get like the next thing. And the more you do that, the more that there's overlap like that while you're basically applying for another job while you're working on a job, the more you can kind of set yourself up for that success. And then the other piece is just luck, because I'm going to pitch on this thing and put all the work in, and they may say absolutely not, we're going with another writer. And that has happened a few times this month. I've been trying to get my next job for the whole month, and have seen passes even though I work really hard on it. So it's that, and that can really stress people out. And that's how you quote unquote secure back to back jobs. Why I say quote unquote is because there's no recipe for that success. But the more you set yourself up for success, the more it becomes possible.
Beautiful.
Okay. The last one, bonus question, Josh, because I didn't tell you I was doing this one, but we've talked about it before, and I know you have thoughts. This question comes from a listener who watched Mandalorian and Grogu and was so in love with that movie that they decided they wanted to write movies. So we've all had that moment, and I'm so happy for
Me
this
too.
person. But given that it's 2026, the first thing that they did was they turned to AI to teach themselves screenwriting. And their question is AI a good teacher, basically? And would we recommend using AI to teach us how to screenwrite if we're new?
Okay. Um, well, I would not, I, sorry, I wouldn't, this is hard. This is complicated because I'm trying to take my emotions out of, away from the
Mm-hmm.
equation and just kind of embrace where we are in the world. So, yeah, I think you can use AI to teach yourself like what are in the books that have been written, what's in Story or Save the Cat or whatever, right? Although I still think the book would be better. So you can learn these various techniques. Where I think this becomes a little like not worrisome, where I would be worried if this were like my younger brother or something, I would say like you can't rely on AI to give you feedback on your pages, and you can't rely on it to give you feedback on structure or voice or tone or whatever that may be, because we all know what AI does, and you can put in something where you're like, I have this idea of a guy jumping down a sewer and fighting alligators in New York. And you're like, that is the most brilliant, contained, high concept movie
Yeah.
I've ever heard. So I wouldn't rely on it. I would still get books. I really would. I honestly just I would look at it, because this is like one of those things where when you listen to audio and you have the art of war summarized in 7 minutes for you, and you're like, I think I know the art of war now. I can go into business.
Mm-hmm.
It's complicated, but at the same time, I'm certain it's a great tool, and there's great things you can learn, and you can learn beat sheets or whatever it may be. But I think you're just kind of missing. There's a little gray zone that needs to kind of be filled with just kind of looking at the books. If I were learning from pages or not a human being.
Yeah.
Go. What do you
Yeah.
think?
It's, I have a whole thing, but I do think that AI, its issue around, well, there are many issues, but one of its issues is it's very generic. So I think it can, and I'm so happy that they were able to like go to something so quickly,
Yeah.
such as ChatGPT or Claude, and start to get a sense of screenwriting and start to understand, like, maybe they typed in, hey, give me the structure of Mandalorian and Grogu, and it like spit out a structure that started them on the path to understanding that there's more, going on than just sitting and enjoying a movie, right? There's a craft behind what they really loved. So I think it's so helpful for you for that, but only to a point, right? And then you really have to start digging in more. And I'm sure that it can continue to be a tool for you as you learn. You can continue to type in stuff like, "Hey, give me the themes of this movie," and it might hit some of them, but it might not. It might misguide you. So the more you can educate yourself, the more you can kind of use AI the way it's supposed to, which is a tool on top of what you are already learning rather than something teaching you. And I think the beauty about our job is that it's something you can learn on your own without a teacher, and that is very incredible. Because I went to college for this. I got my MFA in screenwriting, and I promptly went to extreme debt for just 2 years of schooling. And I think the classes were fantastic. They were very interesting. But if you are a motivated, self driven individual who is truly dedicated, you can also just teach yourself. An example that comes to mind is I took a class on German Expressionism in college, and I loved it. It was amazing. But I could also just buy a book about it. I could watch every movie that the book talks about and then watch it again with commentary and then read the books in the book's bibliography and create my own syllabus and kind of teach it to myself, right? And I think if going to a class is unavailable to you, you can learn it yourself. And I would say if you're very new at screenwriting, my suggestion would be to learn the basics of structure first. And the reason I say that is not because structure is the most important thing in the world and that you need to follow a specific structure, but I think of course, you need to know structure before you break it. But more importantly, you need to know structure so you can start to teach yourself filmmaking. And without a teacher, that's kind of what you need to do. So in a second, I'm going to suggest a reading list because I agree with Josh that reading books, there's sort of no replacement for that. And this list of books are books that I found extremely helpful when I was coming up and learning how to write a screenplay. I would never argue that these books taught me how to write a screenplay because both Josh and I have a very love and hate relationship with screenwriting books. In a lot of ways, I find them to be absolutely useless tools to writing, at least like a truly professional screenplay. However, it's important context that I read them when I first started because all of those books teach you the basics. They teach you what to look out for. They teach you the language of screenwriting. They teach you what an act break is, what themes are, how they function in a movie, what character arcs are, what an antagonist does, and how they function in a movie, just like the language of screenwriting. And I would say that once you have given yourself that foundation from these books and not from AI, because AI will just teach you very generic things and will not go past that point, but these books will dive deeper. So once you have the language of screenwriting and a very basic fundamental understanding of structure and character arcs, then your real education can begin, and that's watching movies. That's it. That's your education. So with those tools, you sit down with a piece of paper or a laptop and you just watch a movie and you pause it whenever you have to. So this may take hours, not just the usual 2 hours, but this is your class for the night where you're teaching yourself by watching a movie and you write down every single scene. And when I have done this, I write down what happens in the scene. And it can be just a basic one-liner, like Stephen walks into the room and sees Jill dead on the floor, right? And then maybe a bullet point under that, I might say, what does the scene do? Does it make you feel a certain way? Does it progress the A story in a specific way? Like, has Jill been dead this whole time? And this is the first time Stephen knows that she's dead. And that's a big realization for the movie. Is that the scene that's doing it? Or does it only progress the character story? And then maybe in another bullet point, I might want to note just like filmmaking techniques that I'm noticing. Like, what is the music doing? What is the composition of the frame? What is the lighting? Is it making me feel any particular way? And then I think one of the most important exercises I ever did that made me want to write screenplays for a living was doing this for Gladiator. And I've talked about this story before, but specifically the assignment was to break down a scene and talk about what that scene's thesis statement was. And the scene I chose was when Joaquin Phoenix confronts Maximus for the first time in the Gladiator arena and like realizes that it's Maximus. And if you watch that scene again, you can kind of do the same thing I did. When you watch it, you can pay attention to how Ridley Scott framed the actors in every single shot. Where is Maximus in the frame versus where is Joaquin Phoenix in the frame? And how does that blocking, just that blocking, tell a story? And then add upon that music, add upon that costume design. One is dressed in white, one is dressed in dark colors. What does that mean? How does that make you feel? For example, Maximus is usually very large in the frame in that scene. He's kind of larger than life. He's this really powerful force. And Joaquin is always very small in the frame. And like, that's very interesting. I also paid attention to the composition in the frame. And that's the first time I learned that there is composition in frames. And I'd watched movies my whole life, but there's one moment in particular where you're watching Maximus's hand as he's gripping the sword very close to frame. So it's huge in the frame and it's kind of on the right side of the frame. And then when you cut to the next shot, because our eye was staring at his hand in the bottom right of the frame, that's where our eye goes in the next shot. And then that's where Maximus is in the next shot, even though Joaquin is closer to frame. So I'm watching Ridley Scott in real time guide our eye in a very specific way with very specific deliberate choices that really made me understand that filmmaking is an incredible art that can be learned and can be taught and that I could do. So making those kinds of comments in your bullet point list will teach you how movies are made. And you just keep doing this for the entire movie. I would also possibly suggest writing time codes as you go occasionally. Like, again, once you read the book, you'll know that at 15 minutes is supposed to be a turning point, at 25, at 50, at 75, at 80, and then 120. Those are your main turning points in a movie. So maybe mark those minutes down and then see what the movie is doing at those points. How is it turning? Or if it's not turning, did you notice that? Did it feel slow, etc.? So that's how you can start to see patterns forming, and that's how you can really teach yourself the art of screenwriting without using something so generic as AI.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a reading list real quick because I do think these are books that I have read that really changed me and really taught me the foundation. So Screenplay by Sid Field, The Screenwriter's Bible by David Trottier, The Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell, Adventures in the Screen Trade by William Goldman, Making Movies by Sidney Lumet, Bird by Anne Lamott, and Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. I'm putting this on here, even though I hate this book, because it is a very good foundation for screenwriting.
I want to throw another another book that is fairly easy to digest, and which is I feel where this person needs something that's easily digestible as an entry point, and then kind of maybe build themselves up. There's a book called Writing Movies for Fun and Profit, How We Made $1 Billion at the Box Office, and you can do it too. And it's by Ben, Garant and Thomas Lennon.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that book.
This book is great. And I think those two are very easy to just look at and be like, oh, they make you feel like, I can do this. And I think that's very, very important. And then you start putting on, the hero's journey and any Christopher Vogler. And then that's where you kind of enter in like the second act of your own screenwriting life.
Save the Cat is definitely the starting point.
And by the way, that Save the Cat has a second book, which actually like breaks down its structure of movie, meaning it'll say alien or whatever, and then it shows the structure so you can read through. So anyway, just do that. Just don't rely too much on AI, because once you do that, you've lost to the machines. Like that becomes, I think it becomes something, it's like scrolling Instagram at night. You're like, I just do it.
Yeah, it's almost like an echo chamber, and it's just too generic, I think, to be helpful at all.
Can be helpful, but not totally. Anyway. Okay.
But not for this.
Fiend.
Okay. That's it. That's our episode about questions from listeners. And I'm going to take us out with the quote of the day. Don't bend. Don't water it down. Don't try to make it logical. Don't edit your own soul according to the fashion. Rather, follow your most intense obsessions mercilessly. Franz Kafka. Please remember to rate and subscribe. Follow us at ActTwoWriters for more awesome writing stuff. You can follow me, Tasha, at Story Thursday on Instagram.
And I'm Josh Hallman on Instagram.
And as always, the Act Two podcast is a production of Act Two, a network and support group for the everyday working screenwriter. This episode is edited by Paul Lundquist.